Hi everybody, welcome to CMN103 Introduction to Creative Industries. I'm Gail Crimmins and today I'm going to be talking to you about presentation skills. I think it's really important when you think about task 2 that you consider that it doesn't matter how amazing your content is, it doesn't matter how amazing and fantastic you have designed a product or a service that people need in the creative industries or that are based in the creative industries, if people don't know about it. So you've really got to be able to tell your story, you've got to be able to pitch it in a way that's really interesting. And the really important thing about that is that the way you physically present what you say has an impact on whether or not your audience becomes interested in what you say. So if I stand here and I look disinterested, and I'll show you physically how I do that. I look disinterested when I put my weight onto one hip, when I slouch, when I let my shoulders roll down, or if I put my hands in my pocket. I actually start to look as if I don't really care about what I'm talking about. And if I don't care what I'm talking about, why should you? If I don't really feel passionate and energized about my product or my service, why should you? So it's just as important to think about how you physically present and how you vocally present your pitch as it is to think about the content of your pitch. Okay, so I just want to read something to you very, very quickly, and then we'll talk about it and I'll demonstrate some ideas around that. Good presenting is about entertaining as well as conveying information. So you have to entertain, you have to engage an audience, you have to make yourself listenable, you have to make your product interesting or your service exciting. You need to entertain the audience. People retain more if they're enjoying themselves and feeling relaxed. So, whatever your subject and audience, try to find ways to make your audience connect with and feel relaxed and interested in what you have to say. What do you need to do to be entertaining? Well, you need to use your imagination. If you're good at humour, use humour, but if you're not, please don't. You have to think about what the audience enjoys. Now, you're in this really privileged position because you know your tutorial mates already. You've talked together, you've done group work together, you've had class discussions, etc. Think about what they're interested in. Think about their cultural ideas. Think about the things that they watch, they listen to, that you can use in your pitch to entertain them. So enjoyment and humour are mostly in the preparation. So you don't necessarily need to be, present something off the cuff. You can present and rehearse it beforehand. And these effects are really are rarely produced spontaneously. So you really do need to think beforehand about what humour you're going to bring into the presentation. You don't need to be a natural stand-up comic, and most of you aren't, so please don't try to be. But really start to think about what are going to make your audience smile, what is going to be recognisable to them. And I want to share a clip with you actually, and it's quite a lengthy clip. There are two main reasons that I want to show it to you. The first is because the presenter, Sir Ken Robertson, introduces humour to every single part of his presentation. He tells little stories, little anecdotes. He sounds very naturally comedic. But don't let that fool you, because he is very well rehearsed and very well prepared, and he has prepared this speech. But he does so with humour and in a very relaxed way. So that's one thing. The other thing that the presenter, Ken, does is he uses information and anecdote and story that connects with his audience. He knows his audience really well. He knows what they're interested in. He knows what they know already because he's shared this conference space with them. And so he's able to reuse those things. So don't forget about what you know about your classmates and your tutorial group as well. But the second reason that I'd like to share this with you is because the subject matter is creativity in education. And so I think that it's really important for us to remember why we're involved in the creative industries, the power of creativity and the importance of creativity for our future. The future is unknown, and we know that we need to be adaptable, we know that we need to be creative to be able to navigate successfully through the future. So just watch this clip and then I'm going to talk a little bit about it in terms of his presentation technique. Okay, so what did you think? Did you enjoy it? I have to say, and it's really worthwhile watching the whole thing. I know you only managed to watch a small section in that time, so maybe when you've got all your assessments out the way, or you find a spare half an hour somewhere, you might want to watch the whole thing, because it's incredibly informative, incredibly moving, but also very funny. So what did you like about it? I particularly liked his jokes and his use of humour, like I mentioned a bit earlier. I liked the way that he connected with his audience. And I like the fact that he did actually make some really very serious points about the importance of creativity, about the way that schools squander the talents of our young children. But he did so in a very engaging, narrative way. So we remember the stories, we're going to remember the ideas. Don't forget the importance of stories in your presentations. We'll remember through stories. Tell us anecdotes, tell us stories, set up scenarios, give us role plays. So these are really important kind of techniques to think about in terms of how and why you present in a certain way. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but also something intriguing about Sir Ken Robinson is that he's physically quite still, certainly in terms of his lower body. And that's because when he was a child he had polio, and so he's quite disabled. It takes quite a long time to walk, and he's not as agile physically as perhaps other people might be. But he's very agile with his eyes and his smile. He smiles readily. Please be aware that when you smile as a presenter, your audience will smile. It's really important. If you want them to feel good about something, you've got to smile. You've got to genuinely feel good about it yourself. If you want them to feel really bad about something, that something's really bad, you frown, you shake your head back and forth. If you want them to agree with you, then you nod. So, remember when you're presenting at what point you want them to agree with you, at what point you want them to disagree with something, at what point you want them to think about something. You might tilt your head to one side. So these non-verbal communication skills indicate to the audience how you want them to respond, what you want them to do, or how you want them to feel. You've got to model the behaviour that you want from your audience. If you want your audience to be interested, you have to be interested. If you want them to be really enthusiastic about something, you've got to be enthusiastic. If you want them to like you, you've got to like them. So I just want you to think about that first image that you have in your slides this week is just a small frame of Barack Obama, and he's presenting. And I think it's really a useful thing to do as well, is to have a look at some of his most famous kind of speeches and what techniques he uses. I don't know if you've noticed, but one of the first things he does, and he was the first US president to do this, he rolled up his sleeves. It's quite an innocuous gesture, isn't it? That looks quite everyday, and that's the whole point. He looked more everyday, more like the average, US citizen on the street than somebody who was completely suited and booted and looked in a suit that didn't resemble the everyday worker, the everyday person. But the rolling of the sleeve is not incidental. He has amazing advisors. And so it wasn't just that he felt like doing it himself. He would have been advised to do that. And there's another reason why he was advised to do that as well. And that's because when you show somebody your wrists, you're saying to them, you can trust me. Now, if there's one thing that a politician needs, it's the belief in the audience and their trust of the audience. So by saying, you can trust me, he was gaining their trust. He uses a lot of these gestures as well, these kind of back and forth, you and me gestures. He uses the word we a lot, and us and our. We believe in this, and this our country, and this our solution. And he does a lot of nodding. And all of these things make the audience feel that they are part of his group, that they agree, that they're part of the same group of people, the same ideas, etc. So these are techniques that you can use. You can roll up your sleeves. You can say, look, you can trust me. You can use we and us gestures. You can use back and forth movement like this that creates that relationship. Don't ignore the potential of your arms and your hands and your head to communicate these things. They're really important. I'm just going to show you as well, if you go back to that second slide. So in the first slide, it's actually the third slide. So in the first slide, we've got a slide of Barack Obama. In the second slide, we've got some of those words that's really important about why you need to entertain and not just inform. And on the third slide, we've got Sir Ken Robinson using that beautiful open gesture which I'm going to talk to you about in relation to the fourth slide. So let's have a little look at that fourth slide. What can you see there? You've got two people standing next to each other. The first person is standing upright. He's got his hands at his waist. He's got a wide stance. His chest is open. His throat is exposed. His chest is exposed. And he looks very confident, overconfident perhaps. Well, juxtaposed to that is a position of vulnerability, where you've got somebody who is literally folding into themselves. They're apologising for their presence. They're saying, don't look at me. And guess what? If you say, don't look at me with your body, the audience will look away. They'll look somewhere else. If you read most newspaper headlines, you'd imagine that the world is full of really awful people, that nobody cares for anybody, that there's no empathy, that the world is a really awful, cruel place. But in my lived experience, that's not the case. Most people, like you at home, are really nice. You know, just genuinely nice person. You wouldn't go out of your way to harm somebody. So when you think that looking at that person, by staring at them, you'll inflict some harm upon them, you look away. What do I mean by that? Let's break this down. Let's look at these points of vulnerability. If somebody looks really, really vulnerable and they tell you with their body that they don't want to be looked at, you will look away. And this is how they tell you. They tell you by putting their toes together or by standing on one foot. They tell you by covering their wrists. They might do it by covering them with a jumper or a cardigan, by putting them in their pockets. They might cover their chest, their throat, and this area here, their solar plexus. They'll cover their throat with their chin, and they'll enfold and make themselves look as small as possible. And they're saying, don't look at me. I feel vulnerable. And so we look away. And guess what? When we look away, our thoughts go somewhere else. Our awareness goes somewhere else. So you've lost your audience without even realising it. By exposing your vulnerability to presenting, you've said to the audience, don't look at me, so they've looked away. You've said to them, don't listen to me, so they've stopped listening to you. So all of that amazing work that you did with your group, developing a concept, finding a gap, doing your market research, that's all wasted because you've said to the audience physically, I don't want you to look at me. But the reverse is true as well. So if you stand upright and you show your wrists and you open your chest and your throat and you say, I've got something really special, amazing, exciting, this is going to really help you, and you do a bit of nodding when you talk about things that you like and a bit of frowning, and they're going to be with you. They're going to share the story, they're going to share your enthusiasm, they're going to share your joy. So really think about your physicality. And the other thing, that this particular slide that I've been talking about is called points of vulnerability. And it relates to the fact that when we are under attack physically, we're animals as the part of the animal kingdom, and this happens to all animals, whether it's humans or otherwise. When we are under attack, when animals are under attack, we cover our body. When we are physically under attack, we cover our body because there are certain points within the body where we could actually lose our life, because we would lose so much blood, or our organs would be exposed in terms of that attack. So without even consciously doing so, when we feel psychologically under attack, we cover those points of vulnerability. So we cover the genitalia, we cover this area here, which is the solar plexus, which is your emotional energy store. We actually cover our chest, we cover our wrists and our throat, and we do so by turning our body in the way that I showed you earlier. You're saying, I'm under attack, you're feeling under attack, and so the audience doesn't want to engage you in any more kind of pain, and so they look away. So really make sure that you're aware of what your body's doing, and make sure that you're upright, that you're confident, and that you enjoy presenting, because then your audience will enjoy it. I want to talk to you a little bit as well about your voice, because your voice is more important than the words. Now, these elements of voice, if you like, paralinguistics, as you'll have discussed in Core 109, the pitch, the pace, the tone of your voice, they communicate the meaning. So the words themselves have no meaning. If I said, stop it, do I mean it? Yeah, I mean stop it. But if I said the same word differently, I might mean something different. So let's have a think about it. What do I mean if I say, stop it? Do I mean it? No. I want you to carry on. So it's the way in which you use the words, the paralinguistics, the paralanguage around that, much more important than the actual words themselves. So think about your pitch, your pace, your tone. Think about the really important words. If you've got a catchphrase, if you've got something that you want the audience to remember, make sure there's a pause before it and a pause after it, because that will prepare the audience to listen to those words, and it'll allow the audience to assimilate and really reflect on and engage those words. So there's got to be pause between the main ideas. You can't just speak as if they're all the words of the same weight, the same meaning, because we switch off. Okay, so think about the words as well. The last thing that I want you to think about is the fact that this non-verbal communication not only changes your audience in terms of the way that they engage with you as a presenter, but it actually can change you and how confident you are as a presenter. So I just want you to watch the next YouTube. So what did you get from that? The fact that actually if you present yourself in a confident posture, that physiological change has a psychological change, and you will end up feeling more confident. So there are these exercises that you can do before you go to present, where you stand upright, where you practice, your open, smooth body language, so that you exude confidence. It'll help you feel more confident in that space. So the last thing about that I want to say is that fluid gestures, these large, fluid, open gestures, exude confidence. Small, repeated, unnecessary gestures exude a lack of confidence. If you know that you're going to be nervous, put your hands in your pockets and stand upright, or put them by your side and stand upright. If you need to, you can hold on to a piece of paper or a palm card. Have a prop, but try to avoid these small little unnecessary movements. So let's really, really quickly recap. The content is important, but how you present is equally important. Entertain, have humour, have stories. Think about who your audience are. You know them. You know what they're interested in. You know what is likely to make them laugh. Bring some of that into it as well. Make sure that you practice and you rehearse so that you feel confident. The more you practice and the more you stand upright in a position of authority, will communicate that confidence, and the audience are going to watch and listen to you. And finally, think about your tone, pitch, pace, because those things tell the audience your meaning of your delivery. So good luck. Enjoy your presentation. I look forward to watching them. Thanks very much.